Welcome to the final edition of the 2019 Davidson Football Coaches Corner, powered by Wade & Associates, alongside head coach Scott Abel. I'm Jake Eisenberg. Coach, season wrapped up on Saturday, an 8-4 record, 5-3 in the PFL. Your overall thoughts on how this year went?
Well, you sit back and you reflect on the season as a whole, and you're certainly excited, you're proud. I'm incredibly proud of our guys, our leadership that we got from our captains, our seniors, and the effort they gave this year. I think you peel back all the layers, and 8-4 is something to be excited about, but you kind of look and say, oh, could have been 9-3, right? Maybe 10-2, but we dealt with a lot of adversity. Numerous injuries. At one point we had 9 starters out. And some really key players, and the next man up challenge kind of started back game 2, where hey, who's going to step up and take that role? And our guys did that this year, and I'm really excited. We rarely went into the game with the same lineup, and each and every week we gave ourselves a chance to win. And sometimes we found ourselves on the short end of the stick, but at the end of the day, there were a lot more good days out there than bad, and I'm really proud of what we were able to accomplish.
To finish the season, a bit of a tough one on Saturday. At the end, some really good starts and some really good things in that game, an 11-minute drive to start, but some things throughout that were a little bit challenging and things to work on throughout the offseason and in spring ball. When you look at Saturday's game, what are some of the things that you're going to take away from that and kind of bring into spring ball? Well,
you look at that. So Drake, year in, year out, is seen as one of the top teams in our league. And we really thought we outplayed them. The game kind of reminded me of Campbell a little bit, right? Where I felt like we really controlled the game, and then all of a sudden you look up and there was a bad break that happened, or we caused ourselves, to stumble, and we're down 10. And then we take control of the game and get right back in it, and then, they maybe make a play on a 4th and 5 that you don't expect them to make, or a fake field goal, right? And good for them. They made some plays, and at the end of the day, we missed on some of those opportunities, and it ends up 31-28. And we've come a long ways to say that, hey, we necessarily didn't play our best. We played hard, right? Our effort was great, but we missed on some execution assignments and still had a chance to win that game. The 4th down conversion at the end of the game, we're going to drive to really take the lead with under 5 minutes, and we get a call there on 4th down that brought the conversion back, and that's tough, right? But our guys never gave up faith, and proud of the effort, disappointed in the outcome.
One of the biggest positives from that game, at least I thought, was the very first drive. 21 plays, 11 minutes, you score a touchdown, Wesley Duggar punches it in. How much was that drive emblematic of the way Davidson football operated this year?
Well, yeah, I think, we said all year, I think we've probably had more drives over 90 yards this year than anybody in the country. They don't stat that, so it's hard to really tell, right? But that was another example, and Drake is really built on defense. They're a team, they finished the year last year losing a nail-biter to Iowa State, who was ranked at the FBS level, number 23 in the country at the time, right? So, and they held them to 27 points. So they are built on defense. And so we knew it was going to be tough. And our guys it was a battle of will that first drive, right? 3 yards, 4 yards, and then an occasional 8-9 yard scamper. And we didn't make any mistakes. And we punched it in at the end, and it was a great way to start the game. And I think that shows you, really how far we've come and the toughness we play with on that side of the football.
A loss to Drake, but 8-4, most wins since 2000, 5-3 in the PFL, most conference wins since 2006. Looking at everything kind of big picture, we'll break this down kind of position group by position group. And you got to start with the offense. 3rd best offense in the PFL in terms of points per game, best rushing offense in the PFL, nationally ranked as well. What are you most proud of that group accomplished this year?
Well, I think the thing we're most proud of is overcoming the adversity, that we overcame with, offensive line. We started numerous different groups because of injuries, right? You lose probably your fastest and maybe most dynamic player the second game of the season for the year, and Will Wicks, and our stud tight end, our senior tight end, Hunter Louthan, goes down midseason, misses most of the season, and we continue to operate. And then we had to lean a little more on Wes and Story and Eli and Khalil, but those guys rose to the occasion. We're so proud. Year 2, I told them it was going to be tougher. People had a year to see us. But at the end of the year, we ended up averaging 35 points a game. We're a top 20 offense in the country, number 3 rushing offense in the country, number 1 3rd down conversion. So when you look back, a really good year for that side of the football.
Let's key in on that third down conversion rate for a second. 57.1% conversion rate on third down, best in the country. How do you do that?
Well, I think you do that by winning first and second down. Yeah, you put yourself in a situation to be successful on third down, right? I think most teams have a hard time on 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, as we do. But you're in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3 a lot, you're going to be successful. And our guys, we've talked about that. Since we started this and installing this offense, we talked about, you want to be in 3rd and manageable, right? Not every play has to be a 10 to 12-yard explosive play. Those are great, right? But hey, let's keep it on track, right? Stay ahead of the chains. And our guys know that. That's how you can have a 21-play drive also, right? They understand that. Okay, we just got 3 yards. That's great. Let's go do it again. And that's hard in today's time because, people, our fan bases that they come from when they come out of high school football and themselves, everyone just talks about explosive plays, right? And everyone thinks that's the answer. Well, that's nice. But that explosive plays, if you rely on those, you become a very inconsistent offense. And we had some of those, right? We can look back to Stetson last week, right? Had quite a few of them, and we scored 50-some points, right? So, but you have to be willing and understand the challenge of driving the field, methodically moving the football when you're asked to do that. And our guys really understood that this year.
One small part of that, you guys are also a really good 4th down team this year. So when you're a really good 4th down team, does that take some of the pressure off 3rd down as well?
Well, it does. We tell our guys, hey, when it's 3rd and 6, we don't necessarily need to get all 6. Let's get it to 4th and 1, 4th and 2, because we're very aggressive, as everyone knows. And so I think that certainly takes some of that pressure off, and guys make plays on 3rd down.
Take a look at some of the offensive standouts. You've talked throughout this year about how impressed you've been with Tyler Phelps and the way that he's grown into this offense. Just kind of big picture with him, year 1 to year 2, now going on year 3 with this offense. Where's he come?
Well, listen, he's like another coach on the field, and that's what you want in your quarterback. And so proud of Tyler. I talked about this last week a little bit, that he spent a really a good portion of that mid part of that season really kind of banged and bruised, and you hate that, but he fought through it. You don't ever hear him complain. He shows up, and I really thought we saw his best football these last 3 or 4 weeks. And I know he's such a competitor, right? He wants to be great at everything he does, and that's what makes him great. And it's a great room. We talked about Lewis quite a bit here, and Lewis has come a long way to himself, right? And he pushes Tyler, right? But they're best friends, right? It's such a great dynamic. And then they're bringing our freshman quarterback along, Connor Norwood, right? And I'm blessed to have that group and to have that room in our program, and they make each other better every day. And Tyler makes everybody around him better.
So from the quarterback room to the running back room, Wesley Duggar goes for 1,000 yards for the 3rd consecutive season, rewrites not just the Davidson record books, but the PFL record books. Jarrell Story, also a terrific season in his senior campaign. What was it like seeing those two work together this year, along with a lot of the other guys that you had run, Eris Hilliard, Eli Turner Jr., Keelan Brown, Khalil Shaw, all those guys kind of mixing in?
Yeah, well, it's we tell people we're kind of a running back dream, right? Because we play so many, and we're going to rotate them in there. But at the end of the day, you find yourself coming down the home stretch really leaning on Wesley and Story and Eli and Khalil, and they love each other, right? And you really see that on the field when you talk about Wes and Story and how they interact. And Wes certainly, he loves playing the game. He's dynamic, right? How fortunate are we to have a kid like that in our backfield. And then Story, man, he loves playing the game, but he loves being a part of the story. And that no pun intended, right? But when Wes was breaking records, he was as excited as anybody.
Yeah, they get together on the sideline.
Yeah,
they start doing the dancing.
They start doing the dance. Yeah, Coach Abel didn't get involved in that, right? But
maybe next year.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Right? There's things I should never do. Okay, but he found himself, and what a great leader, right? He was as excited, maybe more excited than Wes was, right? And what a credit to him, and just the unselfishness by that whole group, right? They never really cared. Him and Wesley and Story they had the freedom to take themselves out, and put each other in. That wasn't done by me, and so they just back and forth. And when one was tired, the other one went in. And so the challenge, next year is now who's going to join that rotation back there with Western. We have some really good young backs. I'm sure we'll talk about them that we're excited, but we'll certainly we'll miss Story and we'll miss his leadership. And Wes, so excited we have him for another year.
Yeah, we'll get to some of those players to watch in a little bit. Want to kind of shift the focus to the defensive side of the ball. What an improvement from year one to year two for the defense. The best defense in the PFL in terms of points per game allowed, the best rushing defense in the PFL. How did you make that jump?
Well, what a fantastic change for that side of the football this year. And I couldn't be prouder. How do we make that jump? Coach Berlin, our defense coordinator, assistant head coach, it's a credit to him and our defensive staff and their vision. And probably most importantly, last year when it was a struggle at times for our defense, they just stuck to the plan, right? They didn't try to recreate anything. They knew we could be good with our personnel inside our plan, but it was going to take time, and they stuck to it, right? They were disciplined in the approach to it, not trying to recreate the wheel. And it didn't always look great last year, but it looked great this year, right? I said last week on the show, I think they don't measure this, but it had to be the single biggest one-season improvement in a unit, maybe across the country. We went from, I think, 115 in the country in total defense last year to number 6 in the country. I mean, that's a 99, position jump, right? That's unheard of, and what a credit to that staff. And then to our players for the same thing I talked about the staff, kind of sticking to the plan and trusting it. They did the same thing, right? We had some personnel movement, right? Our goal was to get more speed on the field, and that really paid off for us. And just really, really proud of that. I thought up front, especially, I thought our guys played incredibly tough. We weren't the biggest guys up front. We were built on speed, but you talk about Bryce Perry Martin. What a senior year he had, and all those, you look around, Hunter Murphy came in once Chi-Chi got hurt. Chi-Chi's one of the most dynamic kids in our league, right? And really hasn't played since Campbell. And Hunter Murphy came in and did a phenomenal job. Harrison Hill moving from linebacker to that edge backer, and just phenomenal season. And Tyler Solomon moving from tight end to defensive line, and Jordan Reed, and they just did a great job up front. And but I would tell you the biggest growth was in our middle layer. With Tony and George and Jalen and Jake Alexander, right? TJ, those guys are linebacker core. Man, it really clicked with them this year where they fit in the defense, and that's really what we're about, right? 11 guys doing 11 jobs, and everybody's got to fit. And that group, it's so important because they're in that middle layer. If the middle layer doesn't fit, we're probably going to struggle. And they were great this year. They really were, and that showed up again Saturday, right? I'm really proud of their growth. And then our back half, I think, grew a lot also, right? Some younger guys, with being led by Ray. I thought Ray had another great campaign, but a lot of talent coming back, and just excited for the future of our defense. I think the best is ahead.
Yeah, 3 interceptions this season for Rayshawn McCall to lead the team. George Talowich leads the team in tackles. Tony Collins right there with him. Bryce Perry Martin, tackles for loss and sacks. He leads the team in those categories, but altogether a cohesive unit that really was a big building block of the team's success this year.
Oh, it really was, right? And that's to become the program and the team we want to become, that had to happen, right? That scoring points and putting offense numbers up is flashy and it's sexy, right? It's what people like to see. But to be a championship level program, to compete at a high level, you got to have all phases, and you got to play great defense week in and week out. And we did that this year. We certainly did.
Then you look at the third phase, special teams. Yeah. Not a phase that necessarily has an enormous weight necessarily, but makes an impact in the game sometimes in an understated fashion. Harrison Hill and Hunter Murphy last week with the block kick and the return for a touchdown. You have Caden Banovsky hitting all 4 field goals he tried this year, leading the PFL in net punt yards. Yeah. Despite the fact that this is not a team that punts a ton. That group, what did they mean to the team this year?
Well, yeah, I thought we took some really good steps there this year, and that didn't always show up. These last couple weeks maybe didn't show up as much, and part of that's with some injury. Caden, who I think is a really dynamic weapon for us, was having a great first-year campaign, for a kicker, and got hurt down at Jacksonville. That held us back a little bit coming down the home stretch, but I'm excited with the steps we took on special teams this year, but I think the growth there is we could have a huge growth because special teams, I think, are really a mirror of your overall depth on your roster, right? And the ability to get some really skilled guys involved. When you talk about your punter and Evan, I think he's a really talented guy, and like you said, we finished in the PFL, though we don't punt much, right? We're net punt. We're the number one team in the PFL, and if Caden had stayed healthy, I think he'd been an all-conference kicker, right? And those are both young kids. And then you surround them with young kids that you've recruited at the positions around them, your young DBs, your young linebackers, your young running backs and tight ends. Those are guys that are playing on a lot of special teams. I think that group is only going to grow. We played a lot of guys, a lot of first years on those and second years on those teams this year. They're all going to now be juniors and sophomores. So excited to see what that future brings for our special teams.
Kind of a good segue to talk about some of the guys that we should keep an eye on coming to spring ball. And, I mean, you look at the special teams, kind of the second layer is the return game. And on Saturday, Aris Hilliard broke off a bunch of big returns and had some dynamic plays this year. You talked about Caden Benofsky, a freshman kicker who you thought was going to be all conference. Who are some guys that you're looking for to take a really big jump this offseason?
Yeah, so we'll start on the defensive side, right? So, and we had a chance to see him play some this year. Cade Jenkins, right? So when Jalen got hurt and had to miss some games, right? Cade stepped in as a starter at corner, which is really tough for a first year, and played really fantastic. Really talented guy. Excited to see his growth in the spring. I also think kind of staying in the back half. Jaden Pass played some really key roles when Draylon was hurt. He's a young safety, really talented young man. Played some really crucial roles. Was Special Team Player of the Week a couple times this year. Brian Jacobs, the kid who got hurt in camp, hurt his knee, who's very dynamic football player that we didn't have a chance to see play this year, and we're excited to see him come back healthy, right? Josh Seppi, who played on just about every special teams. Again, we're talking about those kids who, will have a shot to really get in the mix at linebacker, kind of that middle layer where we graduate some kids, and that's exciting for us. And there's others, right? There's others, but it's a really good, young, talented group, and you saw some of those young edge guys that Stilsky and Moog and those guys who played some key roles when we had some injuries. Probably before they really were ready, it's hard making that jump on the D edge and D line as freshmen, but we're excited from that. Trey No plays down there some Saturday. So, those are all first-year players I just named, right? Quentin James, and I could keep naming them, Yusef Thomas. It's a great group. We're really excited about them. And then offensively, you got to see some of our guys on special teams, like Braden Oakley. Man, Braden's a guy, I call him a Swiss Army knife, right? We could probably put him in every room except for offensive line, and he could be an impactful player, right? You could put him with the defensive ends.
You don't think he could block up front?
He probably could. There'd be a challenge there. 205 pounds.
I remember you telling me he came into Davidson listed as athlete.
Yeah, he is. But I think he's really going to be featured in our running back room. And you saw him on a lot of special teams. Dylan Sparks, another kid who we got to see some this year, right? Those kids are really talented young running backs, along with Aris, right? And then Kendall Ross, who's a sophomore running back who spent some time injured this year, I think really has a shot if he gets healthy to come back and have a really great junior campaign, and excited for that. And then Jaden Waddell, right? First-year receiver who made some big plays a couple weeks ago, and excited to see what the spring brings for him. And you got some of those young tight ends that actually played some this year because of their injuries, right? Jackson Sherrard and Lucas Raber, and I think that we're excited about our young talent. Really, that's what we love about the spring, is giving guys a chance to catch up, right? The game really slows down in the spring for them. Excited for that for all our guys, especially those first years who are just transitioning.
Yeah, looking ahead to a very bright future, but also important to appreciate the present and the past. This group of seniors accomplished so much with this Davidson program. There are a lot of guys that are graduating. George Hatalowicz, Tony Collins among them on the defensive end, Jarrell Story on the offensive end, among so many more. What's the impact of that group, and how have they kind of passed the torch to the rest of the team to go forward?
Well, we can't measure the impact, right? You can't measure it. When 2 years ago, when we got here and the program was a little different state, right? We challenged our guys to just all in, trust and confidence. It's not going to look pretty all the time, right? There's going to be some bad days ahead for us, and we've had some bad days. I mean, we've had some emotional days, right? Some things that you can't prepare for in your program when you deal with a passing of a coach, right? But this leadership in this group has done that. They bought in, and I thought our last year seniors did a great job of that, and they passed that on to this year's group who built on that, right? And so now what you hope is the the seniors coming up next year will build on what this group did. And I don't think you can measure how much they meant to this program. As I talked to them Saturday, everything was rolling along great. I was so proud of our effort and disappointed in the outcome. And you look over at your seniors who got tears in their eyes and run down the cheek, and you get emotional. You look at Bryce Perry Martin, who I don't know if there's a better leader, right? He's a fantastic young man. He makes everyone around him better, and what a dynamic player, right? And you see the tears in his eyes, and you can't help but get choked up because of how much it means to them. And so that was past. There's no doubt in my mind. As they gave their senior talks Friday, and we played Saturday, the love for the game, the love for that locker room and brotherhood was past. And I look forward to seeing what next year's leaders and seniors, how they grow with that.
Standard's been set 8-4 this year, 5-3 in the PFL. The bar has been raised. What's the expectation for next year?
Well, I think just like each year's, okay, first you got to develop your identity, right? And so, we have certainly established our program, right? And that wasn't easy this year, right? Because everyone treated us differently, right? There was a great deal of respect coming into our games from our opponents, which maybe we didn't get in year one. We had to learn to play with that, and we did. And I'm really proud of our guys. And so now, how do you repeatedly do that? That's the challenge. Like, how do you repeatedly be good, right? And then how do you turn good into great? And that repeated excellence. And that's what we're going to focus on. And I think that comes with consistency. I think that comes with driving, understanding that it's little things that matter, right? And little things are from us keeping your locker clean, right? To make sure you just show up for every moment that's important, right? Whether it's in a meeting, on the field, show up. Be there for your teammates. Be there for one another. Become a part of something that's bigger and greater than yourself. And that is what we're going to challenge our guys to do. And I think if we do that, I think we'll continue to grow as a program. We'll continue to build one of the best programs in our conference, and that's our goal.
Coach, thanks again for your time as always and throughout the entire season, and congrats on a terrific year.
Thanks, Jake.
That'll do it for the final edition of the Davidson Football Coaches Corner. You can follow along with the Davidson football program all off-season long and into spring ball on DavidsonWildcats.com and on Twitter @DavidsonFB. Thanks for tuning in all season long to the Davidson Football Coaches Corner.